Okay, Thursday we were learning about the dinim of tzitzis. The last din we learned is if somebody is wearing a tallis gadol, and they have to go to the bathroom. So when they come out, they do not make a new bracha on the tallis because you're allowed to wear a tallis in the bathroom. We don't because out of respect for davening, it's a garment for davening. But Allah, it's not like tefillin. Tefillin, if you wear tefillin, you take them off to go to the bathroom and then you put tefillin on again because you're not allowed to wear tefillin in the bathroom. So therefore, when you come out, you have to make a new bracha on the tefillin. But this, you say you take off your tallis, you know you're going to put it back on. So therefore, you don't have to make a new bracha. Now what happens if somebody is wearing a tallis and all of a sudden the tallis falls off? So if there's a little bit remaining, everybody says you just pull it back up and you fix it and it's good. What happens if the entire tallis fell off? You didn't realize until it fell off already. So now the question is, when you put it back on, do you need to make a bracha or not? So some opinions in Halachos say you do. And some opinions in Halachos say if you're wearing a tallit katan, so then you don't have to make a new bracha because you're still wearing tzitzis. So therefore it's not that you left the mitzvah completely. But if you're not wearing tallis katan, then you need to make a new bracha if it falls off completely. Next.
If somebody was trying to catch it.
It's only if it's still connected to the body before it falls off completely. Next thing is like this. There's a rule in halacha. The Gemara makes an assumption. A person is happy when you do a mitzvah with his money. Therefore, you're allowed to do certain mitzvahs from somebody else's objects without even asking. For instance, if you want to borrow somebody's tefillin, they're not around. Are you allowed to borrow somebody else's tefillin, even though you're stealing? There's a din sheil shlei midas. If you borrow something without permission, you're a ganef, you're a thief. But what happens if you come to shul, you need tefillin, and there's somebody has a pair of tefillin in shul. So the din is you're allowed to use them without permission. Why? Because the Gemara says a person is how we assume that the owner of the tefillin is happy that somebody else did a mitzvah with his property. The same thing with a tallis. You're allowed to borrow somebody's tallis without permission, because again, we assume that the person is happy that a mitzvah is being done with them. But that's only if you put it back exactly the way you found it. In other words, if you borrow somebody's tallis and tefillin here and you put it in the next building, so then you're not allowed to. Then would be a big question if you ate to the mitzvah, because then was stolen, it's considered stealing, and then the question is, can you be ate to mitzvah with stolen goods? Or if the tallis was folded, you have to make sure it's refolded. Unless if it's Shabbos you're not allowed to fold the tallis. So then we assume the person doesn't care that you didn't fold it back. Okay, next. Let's get the practical ones over here. Okay, now there's another interesting din with tzitzis. In fact, somebody just asked me about this here the other day. The Torah says, same thing we find by Sukkah. The Torah says, Gedilim, which means tzitzis, Tasa locho, you have to make tzitzis. Just like it says, Chaga Sukkis, Tasa locho, you have to make a sukkah. You cannot have it, a sukkah being made, passive. You have to make the sukkah. What does this mean? So like we learned in Hilchos Sukkah, we were learning about the sukkah, that if somebody puts up the schach before the walls, it's not kosher. Why? Because the sukkah is the schach. So now, when you finally put up the walls, the sukkah is being made. You didn't put down the schach. The sukkah happens to be made by the fact that you put up the walls. So that's not good. Same thing with tzitzis. The tzitzis have to be made after the garment is a garment. So I'll tell you where it's very... what happens, sometimes in the corner, the holes that the tzitzis are in tears. Right? They tear, and a whole tzitzit comes out, made. So you can't just put the tzitzit back and sew up the hole, in a way that now you have the finished product. Because now, the tzitzit is being made rather than you making the tzitzit. Therefore, what's the halacha? In that case, you'd have to take apart the strings, unravel the strings, and remake the tzitzis. You can't...
Only that corner.
Huh?
That corner only?
That corner only. No, you don't have to make the whole garment. You have to make that corner.
So therefore, all these things cannot be ready-made and then they make it sit and just glue.
Correct. Or sew it in. Huh?
So it cannot be mass-produced.
No, they mass-produce the garment. The tzitzis are all put in by hand.
Every tzitzit is put by hand.
There's no way you could do it by machine. I tell you something. Now, it's all usually finished product. That's it. When we grew up, most of the time, it wasn't finished. They sold you a garment, and then they sold you the tzitzit separately, and you had to tie the...
What's happening now? When we buy something in the box, the Jew put those things together?
You hope.
Huh?
You hope.
Are we hoping? Yeah.
And when you buy tefillin, are you hoping a Jew wrote it or an Arab wrote it? Well, there was a time Arabs were writing tefillin. It's cheap labor, right? I mean, there was a scandal. It's obviously terrible, but there was a scandal in Israel many years ago that Arabs were writing the tefillin or making the tzitzis because it's cheaper. You know, Arabs don't charge as much as Jews do. So yeah, it was a very big problem. Okay. Okay, we said that. Okay, now there's another thing we mentioned before, and this is halacha differs a little bit with Kabbalah. We learned last time, or whenever it was, that when you put on tallis and tefillin in the morning, first you put on tallis, and then you put on tefillin. Even though tefillin are much holier than tallis, nevertheless, you put on tallis before tefillin. Halachically, why do you put on tallis before tefillin? Because there's a rule. In halacha, tallit, v'she'ena tallit, tallit kedim. Less common. More common, you do the more common one first. Tallis we wear 7 days a week. Tefillin we wear 6 days a week. So tallis is worn more often than tefillin. Halacha says you put on the tallis first and then you put on the tefillin. Now, according to Kabbalah, the reason is because tallis, like we discussed the other day, are makifim, the encompassing levels, seviv kolalmin, and tefillin are the internal levels, mind and heart, and you're binding the mind and heart to Hashem, and this is surrounding levels, and therefore first you have the makif level, and then you have the pnimi level. So therefore it says b'chlal and halacha like this. You have to make sure that when you do put away the tallis and tefillin, that you should reach the tallis first. When you're putting your hand in it, you should reach the tallis first. In other words, the tallis should be in front of the tefillin, not behind the tefillin. Why? Because if you touch the tefillin first, there's another rule in halacha, mitzvah ba b'yadcha al tachmitzena. A mitzvah coming to your hand, don't make it chametz. Meaning, if a mitzvah comes to your hand, you got to do it. If you're going to touch the tefillin first, then maybe you have to put on the tefillin. So the whole argument in Poskin, the Magen Avraham, the Alter Rebbe, whatever, that if it's still in the bag, it doesn't matter. It's only if it's loose. But b'chal, people should be aware like this, because I've seen it here in Shul also. People take out the tallis, and then they take out the tefillin, and they take out the tefillin from the boxes, and then they put on the tallis. That's not a correct thing to do, because it's a shayla in halacha. Once you have the tefillin, especially out of the boxes, halachically you might have to put them on first, because now you're touching this mitzvah, you're putting it down. It shows that you don't want this mitzvah. But according to Kabbalah, Mistam, it would be anyway that you do it the right way. But so the bottom line is like this: when you have tallis and tefillin in your tallis bag, the tefillin should be inside, the tallis on the outside. That you always take out the tallis, the tefillin.
This is in the bag, and in the tefillin bag.
Yeah.
The big bag. That's okay.
According to the Alter Rebbe, it's okay. Yeah. Now the same thing is with the hand tefillin, because according to halacha, if you take out the tefillin, according to all opinions, not in the box, not in the bag, not in the box, you have to put on the tefillin first, according to halacha. What happens now? The same thing with the hand tefillin and the head tefillin. Now, first we put on the hand tefillin, then we put on the head tefillin. Why do we first put on the hand tefillin? Because the pasuk says, "Ukshartem la'oisa yadecha," time for a sign on your hand. V'hoyu l'teitafes beinenecha, will be for a sign between your eyes. So the pasuk says clearly, first tie him on your hand, and then the Torah says put him on your face, on your head, right? Beinenecha. So therefore, it says in Halacha, though, you should be very careful that when you take out your tefillin, you take out the hand tefillin first. Again, for the same reason. Now, if you by mistake took out the head tefillin, you can't put it on first. Because the Torah, in the order of the pasuk, says first hand, then head. By tallis, it doesn't say tallis and tefillin the order. But by tefillin, the Torah says clearly, you first put it on the hand, and then on the head. So therefore, but l'chatchila, you have to make sure that when you take out the tefillin, you're taking out the hand tefillin first, and then you put that on, and then you put on the head tefillin. Now, even though the Torah says, now, it's interesting. You know, it's okay. When we get to tefillin, we'll learn those dinim. Okay, next. Now, another interesting thing. What happens if your tallis cotton got old? The tallis got old. So the din is, the garment itself can be thrown into the garbage. There's no holiness in the garment. It's a garment. It's a blanket. It's a whatever. But the strings, the tzitzis, they have to be put into geniza, into shemus. So if you have an old pair of tzitzis and an old tallis, you don't have to take the whole thing and put it into. You could, but you don't have to. You cut off where the tzitzis are, and the tzitzis you bury, with the shemus, and then the tallis itself you can throw out.
You cut the string off of the tallit,
Huh?
or you cut with the fabric?
What?
You cut the corners, or you cut it with the string by itself?
The custom is to cut a little bit of the corner because there's a minhag not to cut tzitzis with a metal blade. That's why when the tzitzis is too long, it says in halacha you shouldn't cut them off with a knife. You should bite it off. What's long? Huh?
Cut with a stone knife.
A stone knife is good, just not metal.
Can you bury them in your backyard, or is that?
You can bury them anywhere. No, seriously, you can bury them anywhere in your backyard, front yard.
And it doesn't have to be covered in anything. You can put it right in the dirt.
Yeah, just don't do it in your friend's lawn. They might not like it.
You don't mess with the grass.
No, yeah, you'll mess up the grass. One last thing. Now, technically, there is no biblical mitzvah in the Torah to wear tzitzis. There are certain mitzvahs in the Torah you must do. Certain mitzvahs in the Torah says if this situation arises, then you need to do a mitzvah. To give you a simple example, there's a mitzvah in the Torah, shechita, slaughter the animal. If I don't want to eat meat, I don't have a mitzvah, I have to go slaughter a chicken or an animal to eat meat. There's a mitzvah in the Torah called mezuzah, right? If I want to be homeless, chas v'shalom, and so then you don't need them. There's no obligation in the Torah to buy a house to fulfill the mitzvah of mezuzah. Or another classic example they give, one of the mitzvahs in the Torah is to divorce your wife. That doesn't mean you have a mitzvah to divorce your wife. Okay? Certain mitzvahs you have to do. You have to put on tefillin. There's certain mitzvahs you have to do. Tzitzis is not a mitzvah, you have to do it. The Torah says if you have a four-cornered garment, you need to wear tzitzis. You need to have tzitzis. If I don't want to wear a four-cornered garment, biblically, rabbinically, I don't have to wear tzitzis. But, and here's where the big but. The Chachamim say it's extremely, extremely important. It reminds us of all the mitzvahs, and you get a lot of reward. And therefore, you see the Shechina, and it says the punishment of not wearing tzitzis is a very terrible punishment. So therefore, bottom line is, wear tzitzis.